Wine is a symbol of love. Wine is a symbol of love. If you look in art throughout the ages, oftentimes when you see a depiction of a young couple, sometimes there's a glass of wine involved. Maybe the young man is holding a glass of wine to symbolize his love for her. That wine is a symbol of love because it has a lot of characteristics that it shares with love, right? Think about the way that wine can make you more cheerful, it makes you more sociable. Wine is sweet to the taste, it's something enjoyable. And wine can also inebriate you, right? It can make you do things that you wouldn't normally do, and that's kind of like love, right? Love makes you do things that you wouldn't necessarily do. It's something that's enjoyable, it's something that brings you joy and cheerfulness generally. So wine is that symbol of love in art and also in the scriptures oftentimes. But today in the gospel that we just heard, there's a problem because the wine has run out, right? We're at a marriage and the wine has run out, right? The love has run dry. Not what you would want to see at a marriage. So there's this problem. I think all of us can probably see moments in our life, maybe relationships in our life, when it kind of feels like that, right? It feels like the wine has run dry, right? It's like I want to love this person, but I'm looking at the bottom of this bottle and I don't see anything left, right? My heart has kind of grown a little bit cold. And that can be true in a marriage, certainly, but it's really in any kind of relationship we have that problem sometimes, right? Maybe a close family member, maybe an old friend, just people that we know that we're called to love, but we don't have it in us maybe. Something is missing there, right? It feels like the wine has all run dry. And so what do we do in that situation? Of course, we got to turn to the one person who is our hope. We turn to Jesus. We turn to Jesus Christ, and we ask him to help us. And of course, in this gospel passage, we see Jesus. He steps up to the plate, and he helps this couple, and he turns water into wine. He turns water into wine. He brings back that joy of love. Jesus takes the water of our disillusionment, the water of our dissatisfaction, maybe the water of our frustration, of our boredom, whatever it is. He takes that water and he makes it into this new wine of love. He fills us up with new love. And this wine that Jesus gives us, it's not just any wine, but actually it's a very good wine, right? It's not just that he gives us this new love, but he gives us this good new love. When the head waiter tastes the wine in today's gospel, he says, "Everyone serves good wine first, and then when people have drunk freely, an inferior one. But you have kept the good wine until now." You have kept the good wine until now. And that's how it is with Jesus too. He keeps that good wine until we ask him. He keeps that good wine until we pray and we ask him for that kind of a love. Because the love that Jesus puts into our heart, it's not just human love, right? Human love can be very frail, can be very fickle, can change, go one way or another. But Jesus fills us with divine love, right? He fills us with this good new wine that is the love of God, this love that is total and complete and uncompromising and unchanging. That's the kind of love that Jesus wants to share with us. It's a divine love, right? It's agape love. It's this total and all-consuming love, and Jesus wants to fill up our hearts with that new wine. So, how do we get it, right? How do we obtain this new wine? I would say maybe two things. First of all, we've got to pray. We've got to pray. We've got to ask. We've got to ask Jesus. We've got to follow the example of Mary in this passage and do something very simple, but sometimes we forget. We've got to tell Jesus, right? Tell Jesus what's going on. Mary says, they have no wine, right? They have no wine. So we've got to come to Jesus and say, Lord, this is what's happening in my life. This is the relationship that I have, and I feel like something is not there, right? Something has got to be recovered. I need something more because my own love is not cutting it, right? I need something more than that. We've got to pray to him. And I think also, in that moment, pray for that person. Pray for whatever person we might be struggling with, because when we pray for another person, it really opens up our heart, right? It opens up our heart. So if we pray from the heart that person will receive the blessing of God, that that person will receive joy, that that person will be helped with whatever it is that they're dealing with, because that's so important that we have that prayer. So we ask Jesus, we say, Jesus, please help us. And then the second thing that I think we've got to do is we've got to cooperate. We've got to cooperate with that grace that God gives us. If we want to have the love of Jesus within our hearts, then that means that we've got to live like Jesus lived. And the way that Jesus lived, we see it on the cross. Jesus lived with a love that was to the end, right? He didn't wait for his enemies to start to love him, but he loved us first. While we were still sinners, Christ loved us, St. Paul says. And so when we're in that situation, we've got to love first, right? We've got to come out and show that we love that person. That can be very transformative. I love the saying of St. John of the Cross. He's one of the great spiritual teachers that we have. St. John of the Cross says, "Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love. Where there is no love, put love, and you will find love." Because when we start to love, even when we don't feel like it, when we choose to love in that moment, something really strange happens. We start to enjoy it. We start to enjoy it a little bit because we realize that that's what helps me. If I love another person, that's going to help me. Maybe that person isn't even ready to reciprocate it right now. Maybe that person's not going to respond to it. But it's going to help me to live a more joyful life when I love another person. And very often, when we make that space for God to come into our lives and into our relationships, very often it does help that other person, right? Very often that other person does change and they can open up as well and they can love. So in all of those moments in our life when we feel like that wine has run out, let's put our trust in the one person that we know we can always trust. Let's put our trust in Jesus. Let's ask him to help us. Let's give him the water of our life and trust in him to transform it into the wine of his divine love.